Coming in at number 5 is a tank that I didn't really expect to be as much fun as it is, and it's the Chinese Tier 7 tank destroyer, the T-34 2GFT. Now that's quite a handful to say, but this little tank destroyer is actually quite a lot of fun. I probably enjoy it because I have over 600 games in my SU-122-44. That is my most liked tank destroyer I've ever played because you could just go absolutely ham with that thing. And the T-34 2GFT is definitely one of those tanks that goes into a very similar kind of category, but it's not as fast as the SC-122-44. So what do you get with this little bad boy? You get a 122mm gun, which at tier 7 is quite large, and you do 390 alpha damage with this shot. So you have heat shells that have 250mm of penetration, and your DPM is not too bad either. It's 2463, so you're definitely going to be a tank that can do quite a bit of damage against all the other tier 7 tanks. Even against tier 8 and some tier 9 tanks, you're going to be able to do some damage. One of the issues though is that these Chinese tank destroyers are not very accurate and their gun handling is not the best. But with this thing, I have the feeling that most of the time you can still work it even if you have to snipe. It has 50 kilometers per hour top speed. Now that is also quite something, and it's able to accelerate in a decent speed, at least in a decent time. It only has 800 HP, and the armor is certainly something that is not the best on this tank, only 70mm at the front. But the angling makes it quite interesting, and that is probably why it's a lot of fun to run around with this thing and bounce shots that you shouldn't be bouncing. But still, if you're hidden, if you can stay in a bush and you get into the role where you can shoot at tanks that do not require more than 250mm of penetration, you're going to be able to do a lot of damage, because this tank certainly is going to dish up all that damage, even though it may take some time, especially with the aim time, which is 3 seconds on stock, and the dispersion is 0.40 at 100 meters. You certainly still have a bit of time to fully aim in the reticle, but it's a fun tank. It really is a very enjoyable experience when you're playing it. So this is my number 5. Let's move on to number 4. Coming in at number 4, we have the Type 61. This thing has been in my top 10 list of the last year in 2020, and it's just such a cool tank that I had to place it into this top 5 list once more. This time around though, it is not in the first 3 places, but it's on spot 4. This tank is so awesome. Ever since they buffed this vehicle, it has become such a menace. This tank has a beautiful 105mm gun that has great aim time, really nice DPM when you get everything buffed out, and it has 400 meters base view range. With the right equipment, with the right crew, this tank can be an absolute beast on the battlefield. It does not have the best top speed, because I remember that the top speed on this vehicle was something along the lines of about 50 kilometers or 45 kilometers per hour. But once you put that beautiful turbocharger on it, and when you look at the power to weight ratio, this tank really accelerates very quickly. It also turns like a beauty. This is one of those medium tanks at tier 9 that when you finally get the hang of how to play it, it becomes such an awesome tank. It can do anything you ask of it. It can penetrate very good and heavily armored vehicles. It can penetrate tanks that are extremely well armored because you have heat shells that have 330mm of pen. You have beautiful AP shells that are very fast, I think. And you have enough ammunition to take out an entire town if needed. One of the main downsides of this vehicle is obviously the armor. It only has 55mm of frontal hull armor and only 85mm on the turret. But still, this tank is absolutely worth it when you like flexible, mobile medium tanks, because this is exactly what you're getting. You're getting a perfect tank to flank around and to shoot some tanks, and you get very nice DPM to do some serious damage with this bad boy. Still one of my favorite tanks in the game, and this is why it comes in at place 4. At number 3, we have a tank that hasn't been good in a very, very long time. And it finally is back on the market. It is the King Tiger, or the Tiger 2. This beauty of a tank is so much fun. If you get this tank fully upgraded, it is such a menace in the game. I love my King Tiger. It sports a beautiful 105mm gun that boasts 226mm of penetration with AP shells that go 1100 meters per second. Or if you really need the extra pen, you get 290mm with APCR. So the Tiger 2 has got you covered when you have to shoot something and go through it. This tank doesn't only look very nice, it also sports a very nice set of armor. The turret has really been improved. It has gotten more armor on top of the hood. It has gotten more armor on the cheeks. So it has been a lot more difficult now to take care of this big Tiger. The hull has finally been fixed. The upper plate finally has the real armor that it needs to have. This tank is a lot of fun. It is not the fastest. It certainly never was a fast heavy tank. But finally now it also sports the protection. And if you look at the gameplay that I've shown you guys, you can see even with premium ammunition, sometimes, well, you just need to have the right angles. Players will not be able to go through your tank. This is really one of those classic vehicles that just you love to see come back with renewed vigor, a better setup, where it's more fun, where it's more competitive, and where it finally is no longer neglected and completely outmatched by other vehicles. Hopefully now we can address some other tanks, such as maybe the T-32 or some other vehicles. That would be great, but the King Tiger 2 comes in at place 3 because this tank really is a beast and it's a legend and it deserves the legend status. It's still not as competitive as some tier 8 premium tanks, but it's better than nothing. I am very sorry guys, but at number 2, my second favorite tank of the year 2021 was the Chateau Leon Bourrasque. And this little French auto-loading menace is a real pill. This thing has so many good qualities that just make it so much fun to play. It has a 105mm gun now. I hope I don't say anything wrong, but it must be a 105mm gun that only sports 190mm of penetration, but it has massive burst potential. The alpha damage on this vehicle is 360 alpha, and if you fire 2 of these rounds, there's a high probability that you do above 700 damage. That is absolutely nasty. Now, I haven't played the Bourrasque often prior to the year 2021, but this year had been really difficult, so I tried it out and I had a lot of fun with it. This is certainly one of those tanks that works so well as a medium tank and as a light tank hybrid. It's a lot of fun. It only has 40mm of frontal armor. It doesn't have any HP, 1250, and its view range is decent but not the best with 390 meters. But what it really makes this tank is just its raw mobility. This tank goes 62 kilometers per hour top speed, and it only weighs 15 tons. So even with 310 horsepower, you still get a 25.77 horsepower per ton ratio. So this tank really gets you from point A to B. And all of those things together, with the very nice gun that you have, even though you have incredibly bad gun handling on this tank, you can really make this one of those really nasty tier 8 premium tanks. I totally understand when players don't like this tank, even when they play it or when they have to go up against it, because in the hands of a very capable player, the Chateau Bourrasque is a very real menace on the battlefield. So this is why I chose this tank on number 2. And this is the only premium tank I'm gonna put into the list because I've played this one a lot in the recent few months. Moving on to number 1. At number 1, we have a tank that I really did not expect to come into play. I never expected that I really enjoyed the WZ-120, but here we are. This is my favorite tank of the year. This vehicle is so much fun. Ever since they buffed it, the WZ-120 has become my favorite tier 9 medium tank in a very, very long time. I play a lot of tier 9 tanks, so that is a very tough spot to get into. The WZ-120 has this beautiful 122mm gun that has 249 millimeters of penetration and 340 on the heat shell. It does 440 alpha damage, which is really, really nice, and the DPM is quite respectable at 2500. Obviously, all of the characteristics you can boost with the right equipment, and ever since they changed some of the characteristics around, the dispersion has gotten better, the aim time has gotten better, the tank is faster, the tank has more horsepower, it has a better power to weight ratio, and everything just feels so good when you're driving this tank. It has 1750 HP, which is a ton if you ask me for a tier 9 medium tank. That is really a lot. And the hull armor and the turret armor are really, really strong. This is what you're expecting of a Soviet tank, but this is not what you're expecting of a Chinese vehicle, because usually the Chinese tanks are just a bit worse off than the Soviet ones, but this one right here is so good. It feels so snappy, it's able to turn very quickly, it's fast enough, it has 60 kilometers per hour top speed, it has 440 alpha, it hurts when you hit someone, like it really, you have to cry when you get hit by a 440 shell and you only have 1400 HP or something like that, because this thing is gonna rip right through you, and if it doesn't go through with AP, it still has heat shells, and that is gonna do massive amounts of damage. One of the biggest downsides to this tank is the 3 degrees of gun depression that you have. Still, it's quite horrible. You cannot really fight on ridgelines. But when you get used to it, and when you notice how to play this tank, you know, oh, you know what, if I rather go into the town where it's very flat, I can still be a lot more effective than when I go with other medium tanks. This tank really shines. It has everything that you need. It has a great gun, it has really, really good gun handling, it has great mobility, it has great armor, it has a lot of HP, the view range is at 390 meters, which you can obviously up with the right equipment, so that's not the worst. You turn your tank very quickly, so what else do you want? This is really one of the best tier 9 medium tanks that I've played in a long time, and if you use the right kind of equipment, the right field modifications, you can probably get this tank even better. I've enjoyed this one a ton, and I've had really crazy games with this vehicle where having the ability to do 440 alpha damage with a single shot is just such a novelty that you really get used to, and when you turn over to another tank that only does 360, 390, you miss that 440. You miss it. Imagine you hit someone for 500 in a medium tank. People go absolutely nuts. This is my pick. This is my number 1. I love this tank. One of my favorites of the year. And I want to know, what is your favorite? What are your favorite 5 tanks that you have played in the year 2021? Which ones have you enjoyed the most? Doesn't matter if it's premium or non-premium, whatever, write it in the comment section below. I'll see you guys on the next video. Until then, have a good one.